government and the free market. That's what we're all about. That's why we're here. That's why we fight. To turn this country around and focus on the Constitution upon which we were founded. Tonight I have the honor of standing on the stage with some amazing men and women who fight alongside of you every day for the principles that we believe in. One of those guys who talks to you every day about these principles from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. on 55 KRC is my good friend Brian Thomas, and I want to introduce him to you now.
It is absolutely my pleasure to be here tonight. I can't imagine a better group of people to be with. And the first thing, it's not funny because I never really write notes to prepare for speeches and things. Unfortunately tonight I'm merely emceeing, I am facilitating. My wife always is really concerned when she comes to events, and she's not here tonight because she has to work. But you gotta prepare, you have to write something down. And the first thing tonight that I wrote down, that I'm obviously not looking at because it doesn't require me to write it down, is to talk about the friendship that I have with you. I'm looking at a group of people. I think I've met every single one of you, at least the vast majority of you over the years, since the first Tea Party, the idea of the Tea Party came up. You've all been there. Every one of you has been there, and you are the core. You are the central, the critical element, the key that we need. And it really fundamentally comes down to whether we're engaged and active and willing to talk about it, speak openly about the convictions and the principles, not being afraid to be shut down by some ridiculous comment about you being a racist or some sort of homophobe or something else. Talking about conviction and principle, talking about things that really, truly, fundamentally transcend party divisions. You got a right wing and a left wing in this country. Where do we all really fundamentally agree? We agree that 2 and 2 makes 4. We agree that if you spend more than you take in, you are going to have a horrific problem on your hands. You can't argue against that. There is no logical argument against that. There is no foundation, fundamental economic principle or theory that defies spending more than you take in. We are on a collision course. Our budget deficit and our trajectory is an existentialist challenge that will ruin our country. Whether you're left-wing, right-wing, independent, Druid, Christian, Imam, conservative, doesn't matter. We have overspent ourselves into oblivion. We have promised more than we can possibly deliver upon, and it will ruin us. It doesn't matter what political spectrum you're from. We can't sustain it. It's impossible. And until we reckon with that and realize it, until we have a party that is willing to say it out loud, put it in stark terms, and say no to the power groups and the fundamental, the interests that persuade our, what we think when we vote for them are logical, rational, sound people, principled people who understand economics. When they are faced with the challenge of fixing the problem, are faced with these lobbyists, these Rasputins whispering in their ear, saying, no, don't do that. We can't have that. We need these manipulations of the tax code. And welcome to tax day, 73,000 pages and growing. Think about that. 73,000 pages of tax code. Why can't it be equal treatment under the law? Which is something that my entire life, which is something that I've been striving for now for about 15 or so years. Equal treatment under the law. I was a misguided youth. I was a very killer concept of true Jeffersonian liberty and freedom, where you can live your life and I can live my life, and we can all get along fine, as long as we are wrecking each other's life, is a much more beautiful principle. I overcame that. I realized that there's not anything government can do to change or alter our individual trajectory. They can scream and moan and try to tell us how many ounces of soda that we want all day long, and you and I are going to still decide in our lives what's right, and that's what we should be able to do in a free society. It's important that we be able to do that. It allows us to establish what's good and what's bad. It's kind of like a Darwinian reality going on. We can learn from the cautionary tales of bad behavior. Don't do heroin, it will kill you. Well, there's a smart thing. Don't eat too much, it will kill you. Well, there's a smart thing. Education is fun. And I know we're going to hear about Common Core tonight. And education from the top down is an abomination. Your neighborhood, my neighborhood, the inner city neighborhood, any neighborhood is different from every other neighborhood. As long as we have individual school systems and the lack of free choice in this country to go where we want to go, to take this largesse from government, this $1,000, $10,000, $4,000, whatever $1,000 it happens to be per child, and allow children the freedom to go where excellence prevails, we are trapped. And it becomes even more and more a problem when Common Core goes across the entire country. So you are trapped. Whether you leave Ohio and travel to Tennessee or anyplace else, you're stuck, at least with public education. I believe in freedom and liberty. I believe in the right to teach my children, or not, as the case may be. Choose not to do that, you choose to be lax in your children's future, I suppose you reap the consequences, but that is what exists in a free society. That's what we're all about. I love a free society. And I want this group, this core group who's been here for so long, since the first Tea Party, the people who understand that it stands for limited government, free markets, and fiscal responsibility, the people who are concerned about their children's future, the people who want jobs for Americans, the people who are looking down the road and not being short-sighted. Like the Harry Reids of the world, who don't care. They're going to be dead before it all comes crashing down. They do not care. You care. And I'm glad to have you here, and I'm glad to have you part of this long-term fight, this existential challenge we're facing. And God bless every one of you. Listen to the speakers tonight. Hear what they have to say. Get engaged, remain engaged. Do not cower in the face of criticism. You will be criticized. You will be demonized. You will be made fun of. Your calves being fat. That is irrelevant. When they accuse you of your calves being fat, they have nothing of substance to stand on. And that's what really it's all about. I'm not going to criticize Hillary Clinton on her calves. I'm going to criticize her policy. Briefly, and I went over time, and I apologize because I am the first person getting up at 3 o'clock tomorrow morning to go on the radio program to know that people on schedule and get to Christmas second. I got a friend. His name's Harold Seeger. If you listen to my program, you've heard him. He's got an excellent book, Freedom's Nightmare. He's seen this. And people who don't really pay attention to the day-to-day in and out of politics and the reality of what's going on in the world don't see this happening. Harold has been through it. He has seen it. He had to escape. Can you imagine living in a free country and then the next couple of years later, you have to escape it? Can you imagine having to escaping from America? Harold did it. He had to. He came here to be free. And it's not going in the right direction. Coming up next, I'm going to so pleased. A man I like to call friend, and it's really a fun thing to look at the list of speakers tonight because everybody on the list has been on my program. And I am so blessed that folks like this will spend the time on my program to help, I want to use the word educate, but explain, to be open, to be free to exchange ideas about what's going on. And Chris Monzel is one of them. You can count on him. He's always working he has to work to reduce the size of government. The amount of money flowing into Hamilton County is reduced, and that's just a natural reality of the economic times we live in. Chris understands that, but he's also known that over the years, there are all kinds of places to save money. There are places you can cut. There are places you can improve efficiency. He's working for Hamilton County sewer ratepayers who are being, and to any children in the room, I apologize. Here's your trigger warning, who are being raped by the EPA's mandate of $3.5 billion worth of sewer work, when that work effectively can be done for so much less money. It's a question of economics. If you can get the same job done for $1, why would you pay 10? That's what Chris is all about. And I'm glad to have him as Hamilton County Commissioner. I love having him on the program. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Monzel.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Brian, for that kind introduction. And thank you, Brian, for all that you do for our community, for your great radio show, and for standing up for this opportunity. I'm Chris Monzel, I'm a Hamilton County Commissioner, and I just want to, again, thank you and say what an honor it is to speak to all of you this evening. You know, it was just 6 years ago that I had the privilege to speak at the first Tax Day rally at Fountain Square, downtown Cincinnati. And what a tough 6 years it's been, hasn't it? It has been a tough 6 years for our country, for our nation. We've been through a lot, and there's still much work that needs to be done. Hard work. There's a famous quote by President Ronald Reagan. He said that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. How true that is. That if not for the hard work of all of you and for the countless others who aren't here tonight, how much freedom would we have today? There's another saying, freedom is never free. We must fight for it. Every hour, every day, every week, every month, every year. It is hard work, but it must be done. And that is why it is so important that you are here this evening. That you are involved and engaged, as Brian said. We have to keep people engaged. Citizen participation in government is important. No, it is critical to the future existence of liberty and freedom in our communities, in our states, and in our country. For not only our generation, but for all those generations to come. Citizen participation is more than just voting, folks. Now, don't get me wrong. We want you to vote. In Chicago, vote often. It's got to turn. But not here. We want to make sure that you vote, your families vote, your friends vote, your neighbors vote. That is still utterly important. Yet I believe citizen participation does not end at the voting booth or at the ballot box. To me, I believe that's just the beginning. We need citizens to continue, long after the votes are cast and tallied, to hold our elected officials accountable. Yes. Believe it or not, please hold me accountable. That's what we need to do. We need citizens to get involved in policy debates, to write letters to newspapers, to blogs, to elected officials, to call into radio shows like Brian, to basically just show up, just like they're doing tonight. Citizen participation at every level of government is necessary, especially with local government. I've always thought that local government was where you feel government the most. From the police and fire services, to fixing the streets, especially all those great potholes we got out there, to picking up our garbage, to fixing our schools. The taxes that you pay, property sales tax, you actually feel or see those government services being used every day in your local community. So how can you get involved? Stay involved. Well, in Hamilton County, we have over 20 boards and commissions, and we appoint over 100 citizens to serve on those boards. Those boards and commissions range from the Mental Health Board, to the Elderly Services Advisory Board, to the Developmental Disabilities Board, even to the Public Library Board. And I just want to give two examples tonight of how important it is to have citizens involved with these boards and commissions in Hamilton County. Here's the first one. In Hamilton County, we have the Tax Levy Review Committee, the TLRC, where citizens volunteer their time and talent in reviewing the county property tax levies that you see on your property tax bill. Some of those folks are Mike Wilson, Ed Steiner, Eppa Rixey, Dan Unger. These are citizens that are appointed who've come forward, don't get paid, give their time and talent, making sure that Hamilton County Commissioners are setting the right property tax levies. And then also making sure that the organizations that receive those property tax levy funds are spending them correctly. And then also giving us suggestions on how we can set the right property tax levy levels. You may remember last year, I know I did, the whole icon tax debate. For over 26 years, Hamilton County property owners provided over $72 million in property taxes to the Union Terminal and Cincinnati Museum Center. And the latest property tax levy was set to expire at the end of last year. The TLRC, after a review, said that there needed to be a comprehensive plan for Union Terminal, that every 5-year property tax levy, raising about $4 million a year, was not solving the problems. So a group of business leaders came together and proposed a 14-year, 4% sales tax that would raise money for both Union Terminal and Music Hall. End of story, right? Business community, arts community come in and say, hey, you guys got to do this. You got to do it, right? Wrong. Well, that didn't happen. Instead, we had citizens like Jeff Capel, Nita Thomas, Dan Rager, who stood up and said we had another idea. And we let them present it to us. I've been told that never before in Hamilton County have commissioners let citizens come in to the table to talk about other ideas on sales tax. That was always done behind closed doors or without citizen participation. This time we invited citizen groups in to actually negotiate what we needed to do with the sales tax. Well, it's about time, folks, because it's your money, right? It's not the government's. We should listen to you how to spend it. So, what happened? Well, we ended up going from a 14-year sales tax to a 5-year sales tax, saving the citizens of Hamilton County of over $300 million. And with the shortened 5-year term, the county would also avoid over $30 million in interest on loans. Because of citizens' input, we saved Hamilton County taxpayers over $330 million. Isn't that how government's supposed to work? Now, my second example is of the Southwestern Ohio Regional Transit Authority. You guys might know this as SORTA. Now, they are responsible for Metro buses, and that's pretty much everybody sees the Metro bus system downtown. Well, SORTA is another board that we have appointments to. And we have 3 individuals that we appoint: Dan St. Charles, Jack Painter, who I saw tonight. Thank you, Jack, for your service on this board. We greatly appreciate it. And then Ron Bozeman. Those are our current appointees. Again, the need for citizen involvement can be seen here. Why? Because the SORTA board has the legal authority to put a sales tax on the ballot. And guess what? Who did the city of Cincinnati contract with to run their streetcar system? SORTA. Exactly. Just connect the dots. The multi-million-dollar streetcar boondoggle, which I tried to stop while in Cincinnati City Council, could be put on the backs of all the taxpayers of Hamilton County with a sales tax put on by the SORTA board. But with our strong appointees' involvement on a SORTA board, I am confident citizens will once again have a seat at the table to decide in stopping any sales tax to bail out the city of Cincinnati's failed streetcars. Cincinnati City Hall. Now, these are just 2 quick examples of just how important it is to have citizen participation. Because freedom really is never more than one generation away from extinction. If it is not us, then who? And if it is not now, then when? We must not only vote, we must participate. We must continue to stand up. We must continue to fight for our freedom and liberty. Freedom is not free, but it's worth everything we have to offer to make sure that our next generations have it. Thank you very much. And God bless you all. May God bless you next week.
Good man. Always a pleasure to have him on my program, and it really is wonderful to hear Chris speak. Common sense. We have them in Hamilton County, and we can have them throughout our nation if we participate. That's what it's about. And talk about participation, our next speaker, Heidi Huber. Heidi Huber. Does she need an introduction? Champion and top-down micromanager of our children education. And you know, I didn't know anything about Common Core, so I started talking to Heidi Huber. Man, I'm telling you, I learned a whole lot, and it frightens me. And I am in the unusual position in terms of, this is where we have a problem. It doesn't impact me anymore. At least, that's the quick knee-jerk reaction for someone who's already got kids in college. It absolutely impacts me. It impacts every single one of us in the future of America. It's our children's education. It is a radical transformation of how our children are taught, and it is flawed fundamentally. Ladies and gentlemen, Heidi Huber.
Good evening. I am so excited to be here tonight. Backstory on this. My dear friend and cohort, Taya Shoemake, and I would like you to give her a round of applause. She is the brains of this group. Just 6 years and a month ago, after she spoke at the original Cincinnati Tea Party on 3/15/09, I walked up to her in the garage at Fountain Square, parking garage, to tell her how impressed I was and find out who she was. She looked at me, as she will tell you today, I'm just a homeschool mom. I was so impressed by her that compelled me to stay with what has become the liberty movement in Cincinnati, the state of Ohio, and quite honestly across the country. And 2.5 years ago, I called her up and said, what's the homeschool community doing about Common Core? But I'll get to that in just a few moments here. President Lincoln's wise words foretold our reality. The philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation will be the philosophy of the government in the next. And so it is. The philosophy that has permeated the American classroom for the last 2 generations is on display in every state house across the country and in the halls of Congress. It's evidenced by an $18 trillion federal debt. Since becoming involved in the Liberty Movement back in 2009, education has always been my issue. I believe as Lincoln did, the liberty will thrive or die depending on what is taught in our classrooms. That is why the fight to repeal Common Core, restore local control of education, and most importantly, empowering parents is my hill to die on. Ohio's fight against Common Core had the classic grassroots start. 2 moms at a kitchen table pointing over more information than they could process or dare to believe, but which was so sinister, they knew there was no turning back. That was 2.5 years ago, and my dear friend and cohort, Taya Shoemake, is still struggling to forgive me for dragging her down this rabbit hole. So with mission at hand, the communications to Columbus began. She and I ventured north. Replies were not encouraging. Every response was a version of, that train has left the station. So we dug in and started organizing. We put together a hugely successful statewide launch in April 2013, which saw over 1,000 Ohioans over the course of 24 hours turn out in Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland. The legislators' phones started ringing. They didn't know what we were talking about, but we had their attention. That was confirmed when the cronies and the entrenched special interests began their campaign to dispel our conspiracy theories. The crazy black helicopter crowd was out. The Southwest Tea Party zealots were rising up. But what they had never planned for was the band of mothers began to form. Moms who refused to accept the excuses, moms who had done their own homework, who knew they were being lied to, who knew far more about what they wanted for their children than anyone in Columbus would report to me. There was an army growing, and would be unlike anything Columbus had ever seen. You see, moms on a mission are an unmatchable force. Going from a kitchen table to driving around the state, trips across the country, the movement took on a life of its own. As I explained to legislators, this is unlike any other issue you have ever dealt with. It will not die out. It arrives on kitchen tables across the state every afternoon. It makes for upset children and angry parents. I don't have to convince parents there's a problem. They know there's a problem. They want to know how to make it stop. And in a world of sound bites and amusements, having parents put aside the details of life's busyness, of the responsibilities and the work, to fight this speaks volumes to its depth and its strength. We've educated thousands of Ohioans. We've crafted legislation. We've caused primary upsets. And we've defined the 2016 presidential litmus test. And by we, I mean us. Not Heidi and Taya, not a few moms in Southwest Ohio. Everyone. This is a call to liberty like none this country has seen. And I'm so excited about it. See, education is a unique industry. Schools exist under our authority and at our expense. They can't regulate us in or force us to comply. They need us more than we need them. Ohio's opt-out movement has proven this. That's why a bill resulting from some hysterical mothers with nothing more than a runaway internet campaign was able to pass through the General Assembly without a single dissenting vote to become the first act of the 131st session, forcing our Common Core-loving governor to acknowledge that there's a problem. A problem so large, in fact, that we have to protect our children from it. A movement that has defined the cause by waking up parents to their power and their authority. They now recognize if you allow the state to intimidate you, you are telling your child you are no longer in control, that you are unable to protect them, and worse, that the state knows best, which is a very dangerous precedent to set and likely impossible reverse. Our public education model is quintessentially American. It is statutorily, philosophically, and innately designed for local control. And that control over public education must return to the communities to which it serves. If we are to ever return our government of, by, and for the people. Thomas Jefferson said an educated citizenry is a vital requisite for our survival as a free people. That's why the next bill that will be introduced in the Ohio House, filed later this month, is the Local Control Restoration Act. Folks, there is no other way to maintain our republic. Our first priority has to be to our children's education. The real tragedy will not be that we leave our posterity with $20 trillion plus of federal debt. The real tragedy will be that they will never know what was really forsaken, their liberty. So on that note, let me close with my favorite Reagan quote, and one that really sums up what I believe every one of us is here for tonight. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We will preserve for our children this, the last best hope for man on earth. But we will sentence them to take the first step into 1,000 years of darkness. If we fail, at least let our children and our children's children say of us, we justified our brief moment here. We did all that could be done. It is indeed my prayer this evening that every patriot here will heed President Reagan's words and fought the good fight, and with the grace of God that they may enjoy the blessings of the Republic, and is still defined by its protection of their inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. God bless you.